So the legendary professor of entrepreneurship at Harvard Business School, Howard Stevenson, once famously defined entrepreneurship as following. Entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to the resources currently held. And that can be said of all the companies you're seeing today, but it's particularly embodied by our next speaker. Who's a recent Williams grad, no particular experience in healthcare, threw himself in the deep end to learn as much as he could about this industry and seized on the unbelievable absurdity that there's no transparency in the system, that what anything costs. Having seized on that, he's now building a company that's literally bridging the payer-provider divide exactly the way that Penn and IBC had envisioned when starting Dream It Health. So please join me as we welcome Lucidity Health.
Thanks a lot, Elliot. And I want to thank everybody here today that's helped us in this journey over the past few months, and particularly Roy Rosen, Tom Olenczak at IBC, Roy's at Penn. They've been really tremendous in helping us get off the ground. So as Elliot mentioned, we see ourselves as sitting at the crossroads of payers and providers. And today I'd like to tell you about one of the pieces of data that we help move in a valuable way for each side, and that's pricing data. So on average, doctors make 67 orders a day for drugs, labs, and imaging, and they don't have any idea about how much any of it costs. So let's look at a typical ordering screen that doctors would use to look at blood work. All right, so in this example, these are all variations of the same test. You've got CBC, you've got CBC stat, you've got CBC with differential. The stat, it's a little bit faster. The diff has an extra component. Now, the most commonly ordered is the CBC with differential. It's the most comprehensive. Why not get it? Well, the AMA says that it's only actually relevant in a handful of cases, and what doctors don't know is that this is the most expensive and that the prices of each of these vary. Now, this is a really good example, I think, of how not having cost information in front of doctors leads to unnecessary spending. Now, that might have been okay 10, 20, 30 years ago, but now doctors are taking on financial risk. ACOs, value-based purchasing, medical homes. We're seeing headlines in the news every day. With Independence Blue Cross right here in Philadelphia, doctors can now earn up to 50% shared savings. Right, this is part of the whole movement that's aligning incentives across payers, providers, and patients. So if a doctor reduces unnecessary drugs, labs, images by $100,000, at the end of the year, he can get $50,000 extra. Now, I want to point out that this is taking into account both quality and cost. So if outcomes get worse, there's no bonuses. I just want to point that out. And last week, we just incorporated into the presentation that United announced an additional $30 billion in pay-for-performance contracts all the way through 2017. So this is here to stay. So how do you take on risk if you don't know how much things cost? And you'd think if you gave them some of this cost information, if you gave that to clinicians, they'd improve value. I'd think so. I hope you'd think so. And if you did, you'd be right. Johns Hopkins in April published a landmark study showing that, quote, if you give doctors basic price information at the point of order, they'll reduce unnecessary spending by A, reducing unnecessary tests, or B, searching for lower priced alternatives. In fact, costs fell by 9%. And in the context of how much gets ordered every year in America, that's $250 billion. And all of that spending is coming from doctors making decisions every day in their offices. Now, doing this, it's not that simple. All right, in Philadelphia alone, I was surprised to find out that there are 70 health systems and over a dozen payers. Expand that to the whole country, it's very difficult. But we saw this as an opportunity to bridge the providers, the payers, and especially in this culture that we're here in Dream It Health, where they're both at the table, and help deliver this information that doctors increasingly need. So we sit at the crossroad, and we collect cost information from payers and deliver it to the providers where they need it most, which is in workflow. The great thing about our engine is that once a system is in our network, there's no manual updating that needs to be done, unlike a lot of the current websites that are being done manually with curators. So it's good for payers, costs fall. It's good for at-risk providers, costs fall. And we take care of that heavy lifting, getting it from point A to point B. So let's take another look at that Allscripts ordering screen, which, by the way, this is the state of the art today. So we can deliver the price of every drug, lab, image, and procedure right to the doctor when he needs it. We are EHR agnostic, and we require minimal client engineering to integrate this data. Let's take it one step further. What if a doctor selects something particularly expensive in spite of those prices? Say Crestor. We can then flag a side-by-side alternative and showing the price difference. Crestor, have you thought about generic Lipitor, 5 times cheaper? Fancy procedures, expensive drugs, even duplicate testing. These are real-time alerts. And finally, I'd like to describe one of the most exciting things that's come out of the conversations that I've had the opportunity to have over these past 3 months with health systems around the country and payers around the country. Over and over, we heard the same thing. We're being asked to drive value for ourselves, for our patients, for our payer partners, but we don't have any idea about how we're doing and how to do better. It's like playing a basketball game without a scoreboard. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why we built Cost Panel. This is the first one-stop source where doctors can see their numbers in real time, saving success, spending trends, peer rankings, and most importantly, actionable insight into where you as a doctor can do better, personally tailored to you. So for instance, let's use the Crestor example again. Dr. Smith prescribes 80 scripts for Crestor a month. Cost Panel shows him that, look, if you switch 70% of those to the equally effective generic Lipitor, like your peers are doing, that will lead to $10,000 in savings a year, just for that drug alone. Expand that to all labs, all images, all procedures, all patients, all clinicians. Pretty soon, you're talking real money. I'm pleased to announce today that we've identified 7 outpatient sites with Penn Medicine with over 100 doctors and 11,000 patients that we will be deploying Cost Panel in early pilots. Currently, they have those 7 practices on the pay-for-performance plan with Independence Blue Cross, and that number is only getting bigger. Our pricing is simple. We help payers and we help providers save money, and we charge per doctor per month. Before I go, just very briefly, my beautiful team. Kelly, we recently poached from the advisory board company. She's leading us on marketing. Nick and Imran, who are currently in the Wharton Healthcare program, are leading us on relationships. And Chun Yang, currently a Penn Master student of engineering, is our lead developer. We are currently raising $800,000. With that money, we plan to expand the team. We plan to deploy not just at Penn, but at 10 health systems in Philadelphia and around the country. And we plan to further prove out this product market fit. So if you believe at all in our vision, please come up to us after the talks. We're going to be putting on some very cool company t-shirts, and we'd love to talk to as many of you as we can. Thank you.